Good morning, everyone, and very much welcome to the landing of the FinTech in the Netherlands launch and, of course, the kickoff of Amsterdam FinTech Week. We're very happy that we're able to kick off an Amsterdam FinTech Week with a proper in-person attendance since, of course, some long years during COVID where we had to do everything online. So we're very happy. Of course, we're kicking off now still online. So we haven't lost all our tricks from the past pandemic, but we're very keen to actually meet you again in person this week as well. But happy to actually speak to you today. And what we want to do is actually talk briefly about what's going to happen at Amsterdam FinTech Week. Then we'd like to talk a little bit about the new page that has been built called Landing FinTech in the Netherlands to support companies that are expanding their markets. And of course, we would like to discuss a little bit what's going on in the international FinTech world together with my distinguished guests this morning, Connie Dorenstein and Elmar Bauma. I'm very keen to have you here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to have you here, and I think I'm very keen. So if I could get the next slide, and I'll explain a little bit about my fabulous guests this morning. So Connie is quite a well-known advisor in the fintech world and entrepreneur. So it's pretty hard actually to find fintech projects where she's not involved, I would say. Well seasoned and very knowledgeable, and with quite some international experience. So from that perspective, happy to have you on board this morning, Connie. And of course,
Perfect.
We've been collaborating already as well for several years in various roles. And Elmar Bauma is of the NFIA, the Dutch Foreign Investment Agency, that collaborates now with all regional agencies in Invest in Holland as the go-to portal for everyone who has an interest in doing business here. So also great to have you here, Elmar.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I think you're a very important, play an important role in channeling all the interest that people have in doing business in the Netherlands. And from that perspective, it's also great that we've been able to collaborate as well for quite a long time already. Just have to mention that I found it funny that actually we found some pictures where we pretty much all look alike. So it feels like we're really a team already for a very long time if you look at the images.
The pose.
Now, so to build up the session this morning, I'd like to first look a little bit ahead at what Amsterdam FinTech Week is going to bring us. So I hope that that we can look ahead a little bit and figure out what kind of nice things there are. We have the community days coming up, actually starting at the moment. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are the community days. Today is still fairly quiet, but on tomorrow we've got a very nice session by Austrade, the Australian Trade and Investment Organization. And we've got a very interesting session by Oris about Defy. Definitely worth checking them out. And you can do that, by the way, on the website xfw.amsterdam, should you want to check out these sessions. Then on Thursday, it's getting a bit more busy. We've got a very nice session with 5 Degrees and Provenir hosting a session at the 5 Degrees office. We've got the 5-year anniversary of FinCoke, one of the well-known experts in the market here on digital banking. And we've got a Techstars investor and founder drinks that night as well. So I think that's also a very nice program coming together very nicely on Thursday. So please check that out as well on the website. But of course, and that's what my team and I think a lot of people around us have been working on for quite a bit, is the Amsterdam FinTech Week Summit taking place on Friday. So if we take a look at the schedule of that, let's have a look there. Of course, we've been able to do that with some great help from our sponsors. So Mambu, Google Cloud, Enviews, Dust Network, FinCoke, Payhawk, Neo by 5 Degrees, and Cognito Media are the main sponsors this year. And we're very happy to have them on board and to support us to actually create this fabulous program for all of you. So if you then look at the program, we're very happy to have Davy Mohan to kick it off together with Robin Kira. They're two leading experts in the market, and I think one from Germany, one from the UK, making a very nice mix. I think a nice Dutch sandwich, you could say, with us in the middle. And I think they're going to really provoke a bit our thoughts about how fintech should actually look at the market. So I've seen a bit of the preparation there, and I think that's really going to be a really thought-provoking session. Another one next up is from Media Monks, which I think is a really interesting one because they really look at the gamification side of fintech, and I think that's one of the topics that we really aim to address this conference is the demand side, right? So very often fintech is discussed from the perspective of the people that are in the know. So there's a lot of jargon and a lot of specialty required to be able to join the conversation. But we think that there's a lot of conversation that we should actually have with the end users to further explain how technology is enhancing their life, but also what kind of challenges come with that and how to properly deal with that. And gamification is, I think, one of the proper ways of actually moving into how you do education going forward. Then we've got a very nice session by Google Cloud and Semi Technologies. Also very much looking forward to that in the way that they will discuss the customer side of fintech. Then we've got a fireside chat by Constijn van Oranje, our startup and scale-up envoy here in the Netherlands, and Sonia Barlow, who will be teasing him to talk a bit about the challenges and opportunities that there are still in the ecosystem. Then we've got a talk by the fintech director of Bol.com, who can tell you a lot about also how e-commerce these days is actually making use of fintech to run their business. I think that's actually one of the things. I mean, very often people now are talking about embedded finance, embedded fintech, but we see, of course, that within e-commerce, that's already a trend that's been ongoing for quite a while. And it's interesting to hear from this leading Dutch platforms, basically the Dutch Amazon, on how they are implementing this. And then we're going to talk about ESG after that, together with NN Bank, PwC, and ABN AMRO, about how environment, social, and governance issues are actually going to be implemented in fintech and where the opportunities are. So I think that's quite a nice start of the morning, and that's actually the quiet part of the day because it's only getting bigger and better, I think, in the afternoon. We already have some nice sessions in the breakout rooms with startup pitching for a group of investors, and we've got a very nice UX workshop by Ergomedia, which I think is also a very nice one where they really are able to focus on how customer interaction can really make a difference in the product adoption. So, any thoughts already, Connie, Elmar?
Well, I'm almost disappointed now that I'm one of the judges in the Starsight program in the morning, because I'm obviously going to miss that. But I assume it's going to be available online later.
For sure. And we'll definitely make sure you can take the most of it. We'll be broadcasting the main stage live as well, and it will be available later on in video.
Yeah, no, I'm really very much looking forward to it. And in the afternoon, I'm very keen also to hear more from Laura van Geest. Obviously, regulation remains a big thing. So if we have the AFM there, that would be perfect. So yes, looking forward to it. It's going to be a great day.
No, exactly. So I think you will see that indeed you already skip ahead towards the end with Laura van Geest closing off the main stage on Friday. She's the chair of the executive board at the AFM, the Dutch Authority for Financial Markets, and they play a really important role in both facilitating innovation in the market as well as keeping it safe and protecting consumers. So that's, I think, it's really great to have her available to spark us with her thoughts and the trends that are happening at the AFM at the moment.
Yeah.
I think you also work with the Dutch regulators quite a lot, right, Elmar?
Yes, correct. Yeah. That's something that companies, of course, have often asked for is policy input and guidance, and we have a good contact with them, also in regards to feedback on the investment climate. So yes.
And I was really intrigued and encouraged, Don, when I read this week that the Dutch central bank is sort of also reviewing its way of going about AML and fighting fraud. And we all know how our wonderful, beautiful Enfant Terrible at Bank has been pushing for this in all sorts of ways. But I'm sure, and I know that you guys have been doing a lot in the background as well. And I think it's massively encouraging that they're finally saying, okay, maybe it's not about ticking the boxes and following the procedures, but it's about deploying tech in the best possible way. So,
exactly, indeed. So
a lighter result for all of the lobbying.
I think it's not an easy journey for regulators as well. I should say, right? So I think that it's a complete landslide that they have to deal with, and I think from that perspective, that's quite a challenge. As well as that, I think fighting money laundering has been such a big topic across the globe for the financial industry. I think everyone I think is in a bit of a search here, but I'm very keen indeed that they're more looking into a risk-based approach going forward, which should help reduce the cost and effort and make them more directed towards actually catching the real bad guys. Right? So that's
Well, we're all crossing the Rubicon, and you say it's a big industry for the financial services industry, but I think everybody's paying more attention now because it has left the financial services industry. It's become a major economic and societal issue. People just don't want to put up with it anymore. So I think that is, one of the good things that it's no longer a problem for the industry. It's a problem observed by all.
Yeah, no, for sure. So briefly, just to run through, I think we've got some great people still on stage as well here in the afternoon with the CCO of Molly. We've got one of the founders of Bright Pensioen. Richard Doherty is a famous fintech podcaster from the UK who's talking to them. We've got a very nice presentation about green and digital by Google Cloud. Very important topics that go hand in hand. Then we've got a regulatory discussion with AFM, the DNB, the Dutch Central Bank, Reg XSA, Plaid, Hierarchies, and Suede Labs. Quite a nice mix. I think I'm very much looking forward to this panel as well, where by no doubt also the anti-money laundering discussion will pop up. Then we've got a nice one on platformification with Mambu, IBAN First, online payment platform, FinCoke, and RedSnap. So they're really going to talk about the way our platforms are actually changing the industry at the moment. Very interesting discussion, I think. And we've got a very nice presentation there from Bank and Rewire, looking into digital banking for the unbanked. I think quite an interesting proposition, and I think it might actually be more and more relevant these days, also in Europe, where we see that there's more and more challenges financially for a lot of people. And then I said we close off with Laura van Geest from the Dutch Authority for Financial Markets, and of course we will be ending with some nice drinks and a bit of fun at the end. Just briefly look at the breakout sessions after this. We've got also a very full two breakout rooms actually to fit in the program with, I'll just mention the parties with IBAN First, 5 Degrees, Provenir, Rabobank, Biscuit, Robeco, Accenture, Form 3, NIBC, Dazur, Dust Network, Euroclear, Maven 11, ING, Levy 9, Dust Network, Euroclear, Payhawk. Yeah, it's quite a nice mix of groups, and the topics are going from decentralized finance to digital transformation and embedded finance. And so I think it's actually it's a very nice mix of topics that I think are sort of spanning all the trends that are currently going on. So definitely worthwhile. And in breakout room 2, we've got not much less of an audio of a group on stage with ABN AMRO, PwC, and NN, continuing the conversation on ESG, with ING, Enfuse, Blackfin, PaySap, and Acre to talk about empowering the customer. Then we've got a conversation with Deploy and Suede Labs about the the use of AI responsibly. Then we've got one session of doing business in Africa, which I'm also very much looking forward to, with DOT, NCC Group, and Oiko Credit, amongst others, to talk about how we could actually, because there's actually quite some fintech companies that do substantial business in Africa. It's quite interesting to explore the common challenges and opportunities that are available there. And then we're ending up the breakout session 2 with a session by Bots and the FIU, the Financial Intelligence Unit. That should be also an interesting one, right? The crypto world where Bots is active is very often seen as an important feeder for money laundering. And so I'm very much looking forward to do their conversation with the Financial Intelligence Unit, who is responsible of catching the money laundering. Yes, we definitely can't wait to see you there. So if you'd like to know more and see the latest change in the program, please go to xfw.amsterdam as a webpage to find the latest program and sign up if you want to join. For everyone who's already got their ticket, you should have received a invitation for the Brella app, so you can start your networking already and build up a bit of the fun before we actually meet each other on Friday, or perhaps in the meanwhile at one of the Community Days events.
Okay.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to this together with you. And I think, I think almost everything in the program that you could think of these days
is there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to become very, multi-personality on Friday. Try it all.
That's always the challenge, right? To feel a bit like in the candy store where you want to go everywhere at the same time.
What I like very much about the program is that it addresses also much of the society challenges that we have in the Netherlands in innovation, in financing startups and technology, in doing something good for the world. I see that also reflected in the program. Maybe we'll get to that in a minute, but that's also one of the key objectives that we have as NFIA, to bring those companies to the Netherlands that can also support the broader ambitions of our country and of our society.
But I think, but is there an active agenda for that? Because I think that's, I think we might know about it, right? So, and I think probably personally you have quite some knowledge about, things that work well and things that don't, to help people guide whether they should set up a business here. But is there a shared agenda for that on specific challenges that we're actually inviting companies over for?
Yes, actually, this is part of a broad process within NFIA. We increasingly are selective in the kinds of companies that we actively want to encourage to come to the Netherlands, because we have challenges, of course, in space, in labor, in energy, and in housing. So we are implicitly focusing on those companies that can really also contribute to our broader national ambitions, such as financing startups, financing innovation, and so on. So these are key priorities now also for our activities in the financial and fintech sector. Of course, we are very much promoting the Netherlands in general as a location for financial services companies and fintech companies, and we think we have a very good story to tell. But we are particularly interested in those companies that can also help to support us in achieving our higher ambitions as a country. And yes, that is being worked out at the moment, and I mentioned a few of those topics already, and this is a work in progress.
And to cut to the chase on this one, Elmar, does that mean that fintech companies that pursue a particular purpose would get more attention, support than people who want to come with the latest buy now, pay later scheme? Not to blame that industry, but there's a total difference in whether you're going to come in and sort of egg on consumer borrowing and lending, or you come in and say, okay, we're trying to find a way to determine how much ESG-proof activities there are in your investment portfolio. Or do you say, no, we have to be totally neutral?
Well, at this moment we're still neutral. That means all companies get our support, with a few exceptions, I should say. But generally speaking, all companies that we believe are an addition, are helping to strengthen our financial sector in the Netherlands, get our support. And what that support is, I'm happy to elaborate if you want to. But that there is still not much difference being made. But what we do increasingly through our offices around the world is to reach out also proactively to companies in the financial and fintech sector that we think can really help us fill some white spots that maybe we still see here in the Netherlands. For instance, the financing of, let's say, deep tech ventures with long payback periods, but very important technological developments. So companies that are willing to finance such long-term undertakings, we reach out to them proactively. Same thing, for instance, for impact financing, companies that can help us, for instance, to finance energy transition or environmental investments. Companies also in the RegTech and compliance area that help companies here to comply with the ever, let's say, evolving regulatory requirements in a more efficient way, so that indeed, for instance, the opening of bank accounts can be streamlined, which is indeed, as mentioned earlier, one of the bottlenecks that we're facing in Holland. So companies that can help us to speed up those processes in compliant matters. Those are companies that we're actively reaching out to. And that's maybe for now, that's the main difference in terms of priorities and just the general service level that we provide to all companies.
Yeah, but particularly in the current climate, it really helps if not only you do something that you enjoy, but you do something that's extremely relevant.
Yes,
and it helps your business case as well.
Yes,
we experienced ourselves. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, exactly. I think that's a really good point, and I think from that perspective, I think it's great that you could bring that knowledge also to the outside and actively pursue companies that are making a sensible contribution, while at the same time being open for everyone who has an interest to join here.
Yeah.
So I think that's because in principle, a competitive landscape is also something we need as an economy. So more of the same is not per se bad, but I can imagine, of course, that you'd want to aim as well for things that we're lacking.
Yeah, and in particular, the point you made about deep tech, we already see this, and it scurs very closely to the whole fintech space. But I see this also in my practice. They're finding it very, very hard to find funding because they're not hot yet. At the same time, they're incredibly necessary because we're tabling technology on top of technology on top of technology, and some of the real deep tech things, as you said, they have a very long payback, and as much as the Netherlands is known for a very good climate, real very high risk early stage ventures is not really sort of what we're very good at, and so those companies really need support from people who bring them together like you do, and who bring the issue to the fore so that they get a listening ear at the VC table. So I'm really pleased to hear that.
Yeah.
Deep tech might not be sexy, but it's going to be incredibly, incredibly necessary.
And it fits well, I think, in sort of the reassessment of the strategic agendas given all the global developments, I would say, right? Whereas technology is to a certain extent also being weaponized, or at least people begin to realize that you don't want to be too dependent on other countries for it. Yeah, really interesting. But I think we're getting ahead of ourselves already, because I think we can talk quite a bit about this for a very long time. But I'd like to really move on to the next part, where we're actually going to talk about the launch of the landing page for fintech in the Netherlands. So this has been on the list for us for quite a while, actually, to launch, because we get quite some requests for information about parties that want to set up a shop in the Netherlands. And this is also why we work, for example, together with the NFIA and Amsterdam in Business and the Hague Business and Rotterdam Partners, Utrecht Region, Regional Development Company, and so on, to actually support everyone who comes to the Netherlands and make it easy to understand how the market works, what's the culture like, how do you set up shop, where do I find investors, how do I find the right people for my team, and what do I need to, for the rest, arrange for because it all looks very easy to just jump on a bike and go to an office. But there's, of course, a little bit more to it, especially within the financial industry, where you just need to really understand the regulatory landscape and understand who's whom and how to deal with them.
Yeah. And that's actually the beauty, isn't it, Dom, that a lot of fintechs are attracted to the Netherlands because we have this reputation of having a very strict regime for regulation and compliance. And so if you get your license in the Netherlands, it's like the dream license. So the beauty is that on the one hand, you're being really, really tough, but it becomes a major attraction because people take you very seriously if you're licensed in the Netherlands.
Yeah. No, exactly. I think that's it, right? So once you cross the hurdle, I think you're pretty good to go from there. But it might be a bit of a struggle to take the first hurdle.
Yeah, we have, by the way, even seen companies that are already licensed in another EU country, but found that it is still difficult to enter the market based on that license and applying for or at least seriously considering obtaining an additional license in the Netherlands. So that shows that it is indeed important to have a strict, transparent, constructive, but certainly also a strict regulator, and that is a good thing, I think.
Yeah, and at the same time, it's good to know today as well are open to innovation, right? So they've got their innovation hub and sandbox, regulatory sandbox that they are actually employing for new innovations. And it's, I think from that perspective, they're really inviting for both domestic as well as foreign parties that are working on something new or something that might just be a little bit out of the ordinary to explore how to deal with that and to facilitate that. I think that's also good to know. And that's, of course, one of the resources you'll find as well on this page going forward. But maybe another one from either one of you. So what do you think is sort of the major topic that everyone starts with? Is that regulation? Is that the number one question when parties are exploring the Dutch market?
You want to go first, Mark?
Yeah, sure. I think it's one of the two major topics. The other one is, of course, getting a better feel of the market developments and trends here and the parties that they can connect to work together with. Often, fintech partners are also in search of good partners in the Netherlands to jointly, develop the market with. And that's something that we're very happy to work closely with Holland Fintech with. And on the regulatory side, yes, we do get a lot of questions, of course, on what's specific in the Netherlands, because, of course, every regulator also has its particular points of attention, and it's important to apply according to, or at least to prepare a license application that meets those particular points of attention that our regulators want to see. And so we're getting a lot of questions about that, and we're giving a lot of guidance and information about that in broad lines, at least. And then we follow up with one of the law firms. And that will be also, by the way, one of our key advices is to really involve an experienced law firm in preparing the application. Doing it yourself is maybe penny wise, pound foolish. So that's something that we certainly advise. But regulatory questions, yes.
It's good that you mentioned it as well, because that's indeed quite a deviation sometimes, for example, from the UK, where the regulators themselves, for example, the FCA is more facilitating in getting the license, and where a lawyer might actually be less of a need.
Yeah.
You see that in the Dutch process, that's really unmissable.
Yeah. And there is a lot of pressure, I think, in terms of resources on the Dutch regulators. So if you get any complaints, it's never about the content. It's much more about the availability, but that's an issue everywhere. And so I think you should also really carefully consider, prepare much more before you jump on the queue. And as with everything, but particularly with license applications, do 80% of the thinking up front before you start sort of filling out the forms. Because they're we've seen them in discussions and in interviews. They ask very relevant questions, and you've just got to be prepared that you're going there with a team who's got a really sound story. So I would say prepare before rushing, to complete the forms. And again, think also about what you're bringing and not just what you want to take, because I often see that startups, two things. First of all, they come with a mission and a strategy that very often they're totally lacking purpose and vision, or they sort of do that on an afternoon on sort of 2 slides. So make sure, because that is very much also one of the things that they will really question you on. Why do you want to do this here? Why do you want to be here? What are you bringing to this industry? And so there's a lot of attention always to, this is what I'm going to do and what I'm going to take and what I'm going to earn. So really think about, your raison d'être before you start going for the application, because in an interview that will come to the fore.
Yeah, I think indeed that's one of the things is where you see that the regulators are actually expecting licensed parties to actually really participate in keeping the ecosystem safe, and they would like to see that as well in the way that you ask for a license, and the way you fill in your role within the ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just about playing by the rules. It's also about intent. What is your intent?
Yeah.
And what is your team? Yes.
Yeah, very good point. And so with regard to the business climate that you were mentioning, Elmar, I think that's definitely also an interesting one where parties would like to understand, who are the bigger banks and how do they operate, and who are the big insurers, and how does the asset management system work, and who are the big tech players. How do you how do you see that you can make people comfortable with that? So because it's I mean, getting a list of who are the top 10 fintech companies in a country might not be enough to actually really understand what's going on.
Yeah, well, we start out with what we call a proposition, which is a summary of what makes the Netherlands a good place to do business, and we truly believe that we have a very a good business environment. And it's not for us. It may be not even something we think about, but for companies coming new to the Netherlands, or new to Europe, or maybe moving over from the UK to the EU mainland, it is really noticeable difference in terms of how easy it is to basically make contacts with companies. Everybody speaks English. That's a very simple fact of life that for us it's logic, but it's not certainly always the case to the same extent in other countries. And everybody is also fairly open and willing to try new things. We have a very innovative-minded business climate and market, and that also makes the Holland a good starting point for trying out, if you will, the European market. Plus, it's an easy country to get around. You can cover it all from any one city, so you don't need to have overnight travel to meet with other clients or partners in other parts of the country. All of these are very practical things. It's a compact size country that you can get to know fairly quickly for all those reasons. And this is something that we explain to companies, and that they all experience when they come here. And of course, we seek to make introductions to potential partners to some extent at least. And like I said earlier, we work closely with that with Holland Fintech, because they have a much broader network, of course, even among the fintech companies in Holland. And those introductions are often quite easily made, like I said, because everybody in Holland is always interested in innovations. And that makes us also, by the way, in world rankings, one of the most innovative countries in the world. That's reflected in those leagues. So those are all things that maybe sound like soft factors, but they're actually very important.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I always find when I work abroad by bringing people over to the Netherlands, first of all, fintech, and that like no one else done, really started out with looking at the consumer banking, the retail banking space. Yep. And in all fairness, we're not at all the most innovative country in the world when it comes to retail banking. We're extremely good in payments processing, hence look at what we're doing. Holland is a master in efficiency in general. We're very good at that. And the other areas that people forget, which I really always tell them, come to the Netherlands if you're interested in anything RegTech or pension fund or insurance, because we have a much, much bigger insurance and pension fund industry than retail banking. I mean, in fact, we don't have a single tier one bank in this country. So, if you're interested in those spaces as well, and that's what I tend to do, is sort of try to egg people on and say, look beyond sort of the consumer and the retail space, because we are a much more interesting country if you want to do some of the tough stuff, because we are interested in optimization and we're very good what people like in working together, collaboration. Polder is part of our nature. And when you come from a heavily competitive space where everything is always against or, like in the US or to a degree in the UK as well, if you're a startup, you can only survive by collaboration. So, in that case, the Netherlands is a very good place to start as well.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I think there's a lot of effort, a lot of opportunities in the B2B space. I mean, I think already about 3/4 of fintech are active more in B2B. In other words, serving other financial institutions with services or products. Yeah. But I think what's interesting now more and more is that you actually see that expand to the B2B space outside the financial industry, where car manufacturers, retailers, e-tailers, and so on are actually are starting to embed fintech components in their offering. That's, I think, a really interesting development recently.
And I think also on the payment space, of course, I think we're running out of case studies for more PSPs who process fast, efficient, and cheaply. But there's a heck of a lot to do in that space, because every transaction we do in life now in these days has almost a payment element. And today it's about currencies, but tomorrow it's about assets like your identity or data or digital currencies. So I think that the whole payments domain is not sort of fully milked, so to speak, either. There's still a long way to go, because everything literally is a transaction, an exchange of value between parties. And I think those are the things in the ecosystem, the platformification, all of those collaboration, transactional elements. The Netherlands is a very good place to start. And very well, we're seen, and we truly are also the test bed for Europe. Because if you go directly into Germany, you really have to work with a very different culture and a different landscape. More or less the same for France. But the Netherlands, if you can survive in this tough, small country, you normally have a good spring bed to launch yourself in the rest of Europe.
Yeah, fully agree. I think that we see that a lot, actually, that a lot of parties set up shop here to expand from here towards Germany, France, Nordics, and beyond, which I think is really, really easy to do, fairly easy to do, I should say.
Yeah.
Maybe one thing I can also add is the attractiveness of doing further research in the Netherlands. One of the things we do is help companies make connections to the research centers in the Netherlands that are relevant to them, such as, for instance, the Hague Security Delta, which is a congregation of companies focusing on cybersecurity, which is, of course, extremely relevant for the digital finance era. And Delft University also now has a special fintech department, which helps companies to further develop their technology in a broad range of fintech applications. These are sort of hidden gems, I would almost say, of knowledge that give great potential to companies to become further advanced and competitive. And it's certainly something we encourage to do this joint research. There's even some government funding also available to support such kind of joint research, certainly in tech breaks. But this is an attractiveness that I think we also like to point out to companies.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good one, as well as, for example, think about the Dutch AI Coalition, which is a government public-private collaboration on the implementation of artificial intelligence across businesses, where there's also a finance vertical active, and so there's a lot of collaboration opportunities, I think, there across the nation, across all the different kinds of stakeholders, from indeed universities to private research institutes or incubators and accelerators. And fortunately, you're able to find them all very easily through the navigator that we are actually about to launch. Because indeed, actually, in the creation of it, we've discovered as well that it's actually, well, it's going to take you quite a while to read it all, because there's just a lot of information that you should find. But we've tried to make it very practical to make sure you can find your way from an easy beginning and an early assessment towards in-depth getting into the veins of the ecosystem to really embed yourself in it. So really excited actually to launch it. So I think actually we should proceed to doing that, to just show you a bit of what to expect from the landing page, which will go live straight after the event. Stan, can you take us to the next slide to show us what it will look like?
Wow.
Here you can see it's the shape of a navigator with some 8 domains, which are about generally getting started, finding your way to venture capital, startup support, housing, attracting the right talent, of course, law and regulations, how to become part of the ecosystem, and a good market overview with all the market participants. So that basically gives you sort of an overview of, in any case, the topics that we also just discussed to find your way step by step to discover how you could find your way and who to connect to, and to make your early assessment to the final connection to actually get things done and land yourself here in the business.
Yeah. And, we talked about it before, Don. I've been delighted to always been sort of connected to Holland Fintech. And now that we've got this page live, we're also going to make sure that we get sort of a level of sort of hot desking so that we can also attract foreign capital to take a deep interest in the Netherlands, for funding purposes, but also to promote and to help startup companies become growth and scale companies and help them reach out. So
yep.
if we can hot desk some of those foreign funds as well in the Netherlands, with the purpose of getting a better spread on international capital and international companies, I think that is basically part of what we've always been wanting to do.
Yeah, I think we've got already quite a good network of international investors, and I think we've seen already over the last decade that there's a really growing interest of foreign investors in the Dutch market, as the startup and scale-up ecosystem has matured quite a lot, I think, over the past years, with, of course, unicorns like Adyen, Molly, Backbase, Bank popping up that actually sort of really help also get noticed. But what you also see is that once you've got these big tech machines, they will have a spin out of people that start their own ventures or at least share their experience with others. And that all together creates a much more solid and more professional startup ecosystem that is also much more attractive to venture capital firms. Yeah. So I think, and of course, we should not forget, I think the category that you just mentioned as well is the big group of LPs that are active here in this market through the pension funds and insurance companies that are really big. And do quite some investing in venture capital.
Yeah, and I think one of the beauties is you just mentioned some of our unicorns, Dom. If you compare unicorns around the world, I would actually quite proudly say that the unicorns in Netherlands are all examples of tenacity. And if you look at Adyen, Backbase, built it years ago. He started doing this. He really held at it for like 10, 11 years before it became such a unicorn. So I think if you, as a sort of part of your DNA, want to look for very sustainable and solid growth rather than an explosion on the scene, then I think Holland's a very good place to be, because these examples really show you what it takes to sort of, as a true entrepreneur, by, every now and then, of course, you have to tip a bit or pivot or change a bit. But really, with solid growth, you can build very, very solid companies. None of these are just explosions that come out of nowhere. But even companies like Remote or whatever, they are fantastic examples of what they do for the network.
Yeah. No, exactly, and I think it's funny actually to also see. Indeed, there's quite some stamina required to actually become that good in a certain area, and indeed, I think online payments have been on the rise since 1995, I believe, around the time when e-commerce kind of kicked off. Yeah. There's been a vivid online payment ecosystem that's been growing and growing, and in the end led to these champions to come to life. Yeah. And the same I think you see as well a bit in the crypto space, where also digital currencies were also already I think in the 90s already very active in that space, and that's all that knowledge also still is being built with regard to both cryptocurrencies as well as privacy technology and security technology. That's all been experimented with since that age. Yeah.
I question actually to Elmar, because you know what it's like. The climate's a bit tough at the moment, and people easily deride one thing or another and promote another. So it's all like, oh, all these Bitcoins, all dangerous stuff, and what have you. At the same time, if you look at the broader thing, DeFi, which I always call the internet before the browser, it's a massive space that has many infrastructural components. Do you see a lot of, and it sort of tends to be that DeFi happens on the West Coast in the US. Do you see a lot of interest from DeFi companies to come to the Netherlands?
Yes, I would say there is a lot of a lot of companies have at least as an important activity, not always the only activity, but part of the activity. The crypto space, so to say, the cryptocurrencies. It's one area, and I know we can discuss this for days, but that we are not actively supporting at the moment. Part of it is still because of a lack of regulation. Now, this is going to change, of course, with the coming of new EU regulations by the end of next year, probably. But also because there are some other, let's say, questions still on the effectiveness and on the, let's say, the potential impact on the economic stability and on indeed risks that some less experienced consumers in the market might take. So there's a few concerns that we still have, and therefore it's an area that is not yet entirely worked out, I should say, in terms of how actively we want to encourage and support investments. It's not that we're stopping it. Don't get me wrong. That's not our role. We're not here to stop any investment. Of course, it's just a choice in terms of what we are able to actively support. Also, given, of course, certain capacity constraints that we have.
And some of those pure, not so much crypto, but DeFi companies might. The ones with the structure might probably fall under, place themselves under the header of deep tech first.
Yeah, well, the technological developments, of course, are extremely important, no matter what. So that it's more the applications maybe that we need to look at. Where do we want to encourage the applications, and where maybe less so. But it's absolutely a very important development, and we're still getting our heads around as to how we can best facilitate it, and which areas we would like to facilitate and would not.
Hey, Don, and if we want to encourage people to use this tool, so to speak, do you, which obviously I will promote as well, but do people have to be a member to access it, or can anybody access it?
No, so this is definitely a resource that's publicly accessible. So it might actually be nice to show the next slides, Sam, to actually give you a bit of a heads up of what you can expect there and to sort of how it's being used. Yeah, so here you see kind of the categories, all that I've explained that already. So maybe go to the next, Sam, and I think we have another video. Yeah, if you can show that. This is, for example, the starting page, the introduction page, where you get some basic information to get started, where you'll find actually also the relevant members. So you'll find Holland Fintech members that could actually help you out with certain questions that you may have around this area. And this is a quite generic page. And then you'll find all the parties that might be relevant for you to further get in touch with, that can give you more information on specific topics, or in general help you out. We've listed the major events. We've listed very important resources for you to be able to just make sure that you understand the bigger portions of the market that you should be aware of. And so we've did that here on a sort of a general level with, for example, of course, Elmar's web address to make sure that you, through Invest in Holland, can find the basic information that you require, as well as general news about the Netherlands, general descriptions about what it's like to actually move here, that could help you out here. And we have actually similar pages for all the different topics. For example, for law and regulation, where you'll find the addresses of both the Innovation Hub, but also the AFM and DNB in general. You can learn about the how it works, and so how we could work with different law firms for that. plus a description of the Dutch financial regulatory system. And so I think we've actually created resources for all those pages, and that's especially aimed at people that are new to the ecosystem. So from that perspective, we're the URL is going to be hollandfintech.com/landing, and you should be able to get there immediately. And of course, we'll help promote this as well through promotion material to make sure everyone has these. And yeah, we'll work also with Elmar, with the NFIA, as well as the regional development companies to, of course, help spread the word on this.
Yeah, I think it's a great initiative, and fully support it as always. And I'm sure there will be also a link to the NFIA page, which has a finance landing page with some testimonials of companies, which I think are very interesting to look at, plus some other practical information. What I would encourage companies to do is that if they consider investing or establishing themselves in the Netherlands, is indeed to check out this page carefully, because it addresses all the frequently asked questions that we also receive. So it's very informative, but to also involve us and at an early stage, because for some areas of government support, it is important that we are familiar with the project from a fairly early stage. Don't worry, it's all fully confidential, and nobody needs to worry about information getting to the wrong places. But for some government support areas, such as, for instance, work permits, it is important that we are aware of the project in a relatively early stage. It becomes more and more difficult, certainly after the company has been established, to provide that kind of support. So that will be just a practical suggestion.
And Don, this getting started in the Netherlands is both for people who want to literally start from zero here, but also for people who want to establish, a satellite office or
exactly
satellite development. So it's
not indeed
just startups. It's also
starting from scratch, or starting from as a spin out or subsidiary are fairly similar, of course. So I think the resource indeed we've aimed at making it relevant for both categories. So that's, I think, one thing. But I was actually also triggered by you, Elmar, because I think one thing that we currently still lack, I think, in this resource is your 5 steps to actually establish yourself in the Netherlands, sort of the things you must in any case do. Mm-hmm. Step 1, call Elmar. Step 2, right? Then we actually basically we can probably actually create a more of a shortcut of a resource where we actually say, okay, these are the essential steps to take in the process. From your exploration to your final confirmation to the actual establishment, what are the essences to pick up? I think that would be a nice one to add to this. And I think also that's good to realize, of course, this is pretty much a moving target with new information coming in from time to time. And we'd love to collaborate with all of you actually to work on improving this and making sure all the right information is there and that it's useful and practical.
And also add new parties that are coming to the scene that really want to help this space. And you see young startups also on the law firm side that really totally focus on the fintech space. They should become members and make themselves known here.
Yep, for sure. Yeah. Now, so in any case, from that perspective, this part of the page is in any case also a survey to get an idea to make sure that we understand well what you need going forward and what resources might be lacking or what we could improve. We'd like to use that information to better help you out. And we'll be adding more information, like you see now. For example, you see come by the venture capital page where there's a list of the most active fintech venture capital firms, plus quite some resources that can help you out understanding the landscape, free document templates and other resources that are relevant from a venture capital perspective. And so we tackle topic by topic to provide you with the resources to help you find your way.
Perfect.
Great. Fantastic.
So, yeah.
No, so we're looking forward to making this useful in practice. And so this is also probably, Elmar, where we really will collaborate even further, I think, going forward with Invest in Holland to see how we can, match up and support each other in helping companies understand the way.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that.
So do I.
And we will support you in that campaign and also abroad so that people really know where to find you. And it's going live, you say, today after this event?
Exactly. Straight after.
Perfect.
So you can actually just go there in a couple of minutes with hollandfintech.com/landing. So it's that easy. And then we're very much looking forward to your feedback, of course, because everyone who's looking to use it might always find flaws, ideas, suggestions, or other feedback. Very much welcome to see that we can improve all this.
Perfect.
Very good.
Just maybe to wrap up, anything that you think that anything that you're particularly looking forward to this week, Elmar? Anything that's happening going in front of you that you're looking forward to? Oh, I think actually I remember you actually have to tell us a little bit about an event you're going to do in London pretty soon.
Yes, that we're planning that for next week, Thursday. Now we're still under a bit of uncertainty given the passing away of the Queen in the UK as to whether events will take place in this shape and form. But the plan is still to indeed host an event at the Clipper, an Amsterdam sailing ship that will visit London next week. At least that's still the plan, and to host an event there on finance and fintech in the Netherlands for companies in the UK that are interested to know more about that. And we're talking, of course, to a large number of companies there that are interested in setting up an establishment in the EU, and so we have a good attendance. But like I said, it's there's still a small cloud of uncertainty over the event, so we'll have to decide probably in the course of today as to whether it will actually be able to take place in this at this time, or whether we need to postpone it. And all considerations will be taken on board, of course, for that. So. But at least that's the plan, and if it doesn't take place next week, then it will take place, well, hopefully as soon as possible after that.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, in any case. I'm also looking forward to take part in that, Elmar. Indeed, fingers crossed that it will go through, but otherwise another moment is also okay, of course. But I think it's going to be a very nice session.
Yeah.
And we will keep on bridging the UK and the Netherlands, because I think it's Brexit is definitely not really favored by many of the Dutch, I believe, or in any case definitely not from a fintech perspective, as there's been strong collaboration ongoing, and I think we will continue to do that. And I think, Connie, you're also a good example of that, right?
I'm looking forward to this sort of more the invigoration, because as you can imagine, over the last few months, I've been very busy working with fintech scale-ups who are sort of, looking at a very different landscape in terms of funding, etc. And of course, we saw a very heavy reassessment of the market in terms of funding under all those businesses. And what I would say is, I'm going to look at some tech stars, I'm going to candidates, on Friday, I'm going to help at your event, looking at companies. The one thing I would say is don't be discouraged. We saw ridiculous valuations in the tail end of 21 and most of, 20 and 21. We have a new realm of reality that we have to deal with. If you consider yourself to be an entrepreneur, life can be very tough. As, both Don and I know from a personal perspective as well, running businesses. But do not give up, because the underlying economics are still there. We have new technology. The world's going to be driven by data. There's a massive need for everything that you guys are building and making out there. So I am personally very committed to also bringing energy, hope and tenacity to everybody I speak to, because things might look very difficult, but if you're starting a company, think about the structure, because the way you structure it and the way you let other investments in is going to be very important for your success later. So make sure that your incentives are aligned with those of current investors, future investors. Make sure you leave space for that. But most of all, if you have a real purpose and a real vision, that is the one thing people cannot steal from you. They can all copy your mission and your strategy. Nobody can copy your purpose and your vision. And so I very much look forward to meeting, scale-up startups and say, whatever you do, in the vein of England, and at this moment in time, I refer back to my old friend Churchill, never, ever, ever, ever give up. Just keep going. So I very much look forward to this week. For me, it's total invigoration to be live in the scene again.
Thanks, Connie. Very nice words indeed to keep everyone on the positive side, because I think the circumstances might be a bit tougher, but I think the momentum is still there. So let's see how we can work with that. And indeed, also very much looking forward to seeing you later this week. Same to you, Elmar. Both of you, thank you very much for joining me this morning on this session, and looking forward to our further collaboration and the rest of the week.
Absolutely.
Have a great day, everyone.
To you all out there, keep it up. See you Friday.
Thank you all. Thanks. See you.
Bye.
Bye.